Aha, I know exactly who killed her. Well, it could be him. Wait, no, it could be her too. Oh man, I just don't know. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're going to dive into the mini-series The Undoing on HBO Max, starring Nicole, Kidman, Noah, Jupe, Hugh Grant, and so many others. It's directed by Susanne, Bier, and the creator is David E. Kelley, who does an amazing job here. Now, before we go any further, this is a spoiler-filled review, and yes, we're going to be explaining the ending a little bit as well as discussing some of my theories, so you do not want to go past this point if you haven't watched this 6-episode miniseries. Guys, it's an easy watch, so if you have HBO Max, go and do it and then come back to this review. But if you are all caught up, let's get started. The Undoing centers around a psychologist named Grace, played by the wonderful Nicole Kidman, and her husband Jonathan, played by the captivating Hugh Grant. He gets into a little bit of trouble as he is the #1 suspect in a murder case where, well, this girl got bludgeoned in the face to death. No, I'm not showing the photo. The series does that enough. However, did he do it? And if he did, what was the motive? So this is a murder mystery at its finest. It's a really cool case of who done it. So if you like Knives Out, and even Apple TV Plus's Defending Jacob this year, you're really going to enjoy The Undoing. Guys, before we get any further, if you haven't already, consider hitting the big red button below if you like more TV show breakdowns just like this, and if you haven't, tap on the bell so you stay up to date with anything new, smash that like button, and get loud in the comments below. I want to know your theories. Who was at the top of your suspect list, and what did you think of The Undoing overall? So guys, let's get into what I actually liked a lot about this show. I have no negatives for this miniseries, I really don't, so this is going to be a very positive video. There's a lot of amazing acting here, but some of my favorite performances were by Nicole Kidman, who plays Grace. She does a great deal of acting with her eyes, and the amount of emotion she just brings to each episode was, it was perfect. Guys, she's got to get nominated for an Emmy for this. She was great. Then you have Hugh Grant, who plays Jonathan. I'd never liked this character from the jump, but there was something about this guy that was a little charming in the beginning, and Hugh Grant is able to really cycle through each phase of his character properly with grace, and well, that ending, bro. And then you have the underrated Noah Jupe, who plays Henry, son to both Grace and Jonathan. Guys, Noah Jupe is really, really good. If you haven't seen the movie Honey Boy, I recommend it just for his performance alone. He outshines Shia LaBeouf, and honestly, Noah Jupe is going to be an actor that will be on my radar for many years to come. And then there's the absolute legend, Donald Sutherland, who plays Franklin. He is the father of Grace, and boy, he has a vendetta against Jonathan the entire show, and he, as an actor, shines in the final few episodes of this miniseries. You guys know what I'm talking about, and we will talk much more about that as this video goes on. And lastly, there's Lily Rabe, who plays Sylvia, the ride-or-die best friend to Grace. And to be honest with y'all, I've never seen Lily Rabe before, but she is really good in this show. I think she played her character perfectly. But the standout for me, I'm not saying that no one else is up to her level, but what I am saying is that this actress stood out in every single scene she was afforded to be in. That's Noma Dumezweni, who plays Haley Fitzgerald. Honestly, I had to clap for her because she was just great. She was captivating in every single scene. She commanded my attention. And because she did play the defense attorney for Jonathan, there were a great deal of scenes that featured her in solo moments, especially in that courtroom drama final couple of episode stretch that we had. Woo, boy. She took my breath away. She was so good, and there were some moments where she was dragging some people. And this miniseries wouldn't be as excellent as it is if it wasn't for the writing. Man, I was hanging on the end of every single word for our characters, including Donald Sutherland's character, Franklin. There's one episode, episode 4, where he's meeting with Reardon's headmaster, and well, he calls himself a certain word that I'm not going to repeat here, but he goes on this tangent, right? And it just seems like it fits for his character, and it had a very Succession kind of vibe if you've seen that show on HBO as well. And for all of our other characters, sometimes they were given short moments of dialogue, but it really worked for them. So I think the writing was catering to every character really well. I also like how the show is frantically shot to make us feel paranoid alongside Grace and some of our other characters, but I want to just kind of hone in on Grace here. There were a lot of extreme close-up shots that really showed the emotion in Nicole Kidman's face. This miniseries, for some reason, really did a good job at showing people crying. I don't know what it was, but all the faces that were made, none of it felt like overacting, and a lot of it felt like it was just right for the moment. So I really appreciate the cinematography. I like that, yeah, we got some of the traditional shoulder over shoulder kind of shot, but then there were times in the courtroom where the dialogue was super snappy, the tension was really rising, and all of a sudden the camera goes in focus and out of focus depending on who's talking, and it just really blew me away. And honestly, I was hooked after the first episode. I was actually sad to find out that this was only 6 episodes. Full confession, I binge watched this on Sunday, the date of the finale, and I made it sort of in time for episode 6, but I really think that this is a great sign for a lot of people who are just going to get started, that after episode 1, I think you will be hooked with this show, especially if you're a fan of these whodunit kind of series. Now, I do want to get into my theories, okay? So that's all that I loved, and there's so much more clearly that we can talk about, but I do want to dive into my theories here because, guys, I did not really get into the show at the height of its Twitter conversation, if that makes sense. So everyone was throwing theories out there, and I stayed away from them. That's a good thing. But now it's time to break down exactly who I thought did it as the show was going on. After 2 episodes, Jonathan was at the top of my list. He was suspect number 1, and he was going to stay there. I was convinced it was him, but that son of a gun, Hugh Grant, he really just convinced me as Jonathan that he didn't do it. So I started to think of these possibilities, one of them being Jonathan and Sylvia. That sounds funny, but they both worked together as Jonathan got into some legal trouble, especially at the hospital, where he got dismissed for inappropriate conduct with a patient and, well, the patient's mom that we soon find out to be Elena. And I think that Sylvia helped him out in good faith because Grace is like her BFF, right? I get it. But something about Sylvia was throwing me off. I almost felt like she knew too much to not be involved. So I thought at one point, okay, maybe Sylvia helped Jonathan cover it up. But then during episode 3, I thought, boy, Sylvia killed her. But over time, that became less and less of a possibility, so I had to throw out more theories, one of them being Grace killing Elena. Now, that probably sounds far-fetched because I didn't necessarily have a concrete reason why. There was one thing I can think of that would lead me to believe that Grace killed Elena, and that has to be she was suffering from a dissociative disorder. I just finished watching Mr. Robot this year. Yeah, I binge-watched that one too, and it's a great show, but that's a video for another time. Dissociative disorder kind of allows you to forget certain things. One of them is amnesia. And honestly, there were a lot of moments, especially when Grace was chilling in bed, laying down, she would have these vivid memories that were almost too real of Elena's murder. And I thought, okay, is this the show telling us that Grace is the one who killed Elena and she just happened to forget, maybe because she was throwing the trauma to the side and wanted to forget about it, or she really was struggling from a dissociative disorder? And then my final theory was, once the hammer was found in Henry's violin case, I thought, did Noah Jupe kill this lady? I thought he could have done it after seeing Elena with his father fraternizing outside of his school, and that was the one moment where I thought, okay, at first, the hammer being found in the case may be a red herring, but this is what I think could have led Henry to go and kill Elena, because he was upset that Elena was taking away that family dynamic that he so loved. And there was this scene where they all 3 were sitting at dinner, Grace, Jonathan, and Henry opens up and says, you know what, we can still be a family. Once Dad gets cleared of this, I refuse to believe he did it, but I believe that we can be a family. And I thought, homeboy, why are you pushing this along so quickly? Did you do something? Do you know something? So that was just another part of my reasoning, but those are the only real theories that I had as the show was going on, and eventually, well, they're wrong. Jonathan killed Elena. We find out that Jonathan murdered Elena the night of the Reardon School auction after having made love to her. Then Elena tells Jonathan that her son Miguel, who actually Jonathan helped treat for cancer. Boy, it's a whole mess. Elena then tells Jonathan, hey, Miguel and your son Henry, they could be brothers. You know, we can turn this into a family thing. And that made Jonathan real mad. He said, stay away from my family. They got into a heated argument, and then he slams her head against the wall. I don't care what happens, but boy, that is wrong. And eventually, Elena tries to fight back, picks up one of the hammers, the sculpting hammer, runs after Jonathan. Jonathan turns around, grabs the hammer, and then eventually bludgeons her to death, hitting her multiple times. Boy, that scene was hard. A lot of these scenes were really tough to stomach, guys. I'm not gonna lie, I had to turn my head away from the screen sometimes. But boy, Hugh Grant just did a great job of selling, and poor Elena. I did love that in the finale they showed how the case was won by the prosecution. After putting the pieces together, guys, I really did understand that Grace and Sylvia, they were able to work with one another to deliver some sensitive information to the prosecution that would evidently show that Jonathan was guilty. I wholeheartedly believe that Grace on that walk with Sylvia told her everything she needed to know, including the conversation that Grace had with Jonathan's mother, Janet, played by the wonderful Rosemary Harris. All my Sam Raimi Spider-Man fans stand up, but I absolutely loved that conversation. It was really gut-wrenching too, because we learned that Jonathan is kind of a sociopath. And then of course there's that scene where Sylvia and the prosecutor are exchanging glances in the restroom, and I thought, boy, they must be working together. Something is up. And we find out exactly what is up when Grace takes the witness stand, which she of course volunteered to do. And we know now that's because she wanted to dig a hole for Jonathan that he couldn't crawl out of. And that's when the prosecution puts the final nail in the coffin with Grace's testimony. And then I love that Haley Fitzgerald turns over to Jonathan and says, "You should have just got rid of the hammer, homie." But there is one thing that I was surprised never came up. And of course, Grace was going to be tight-lipped about this because it would in turn make her another major suspect in this case. It was the moment where Grace and Elena kissed in the elevator. It was more so Elena kissing Grace, but still, if that would have came out, the police would have said, "You and your husband worked to kill her." And then I think Grace actually would have been in trouble. Her testimony would have went out the window, but that never happened. And I'm actually surprised because Grace seems to be a person who can't sleep well at night if she knows she's lying. So this was a very interesting turn of events. So if you are a little unclear about this ending, guys, let's dive into what happened in that final episode. After Jonathan realized he was guilty, he took his son on a drive that instead felt like more of a joyride. He threatened to crash multiple times, even barely missing a semi-truck T-boning them driving through a busy intersection. I'm telling you, I felt so bad for Noah Jupe in this moment, but Hugh Grant sold the face of a lunatic. I mean, the whole time, Hugh Grant was just smiling. Jonathan was not playing any games. He actually, I think, would have been okay with just crashing and burning. Jonathan told Henry in the car that the man who killed Elena wasn't his dad, which also tells me, guys, that Jonathan as a teenager was probably triggered to be comfortable with murder because of the events that happened to his sister when his sister crossed the street and got hit by a car, and he showed no remorse, he showed no sympathy or compassion. That's the sign of a killer. So not only did that probably trigger a different side to him, he also threatened to jump off a bridge at the end while holding his son's hand. And to be honest, I don't think he was ever going to jump. I don't think he fully committed to it. What he did want to do, though, is create attention, put the spotlight on him for one last time. That is his character's MO. Jonathan always needs it to be about him. He kind of loves when someone is always gravitating towards him. The man had no issue with lying to his wife about saving the life of one of his patients, and instead lying to his wife about having an affair and then going and sleeping with his wife the same night. You son of a gun. Like, it's crazy to me that Jonathan was so okay with all of this, and then when they arrest him, it almost seemed like he was fine with it. You know what I mean? He didn't get the satisfaction of Grace and Henry turning around one last time to look at him, though, so I think that probably burns him up inside. But boy, I love the final shot in this show, and that is of Grace and Henry walking, and Grace smiling a little bit. Nicole Kidman sold to me that her character was really taking control one last time. This is her getting her power back, and I loved it. So guys, there you have it. We talked about my theories, what made this show great, and explained the ending. But I want to know what you guys have to say about this. So get loud in the comments, and if you haven't already, like this video and consider hitting the big red button below and subscribing to the channel. Guys, I want to do more recaps like this. I love talking about movies and TV shows. Man, I'm so glad I got a chance to air on my feelings, and I want to start another murder mystery series. So if you got any recommendations, throw them in the comments as well. Alright guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.